What is up, everybody? Welcome back to More Floor. Um, we got a special guest today. We got my fellow Puerto Rican within the 5 Reasons Sports Network. We got a Boricua in the building today,
Yes,
Mr.
sir.
Bryan Fonseca. Is that
Yes,
is that
sir. Yeah,
the right
you
way to do it?
nailed it.
Bryan
You, I
Fonseca.
expect you to nail it above anybody
I
else.
mean,
You
I
know
would
what I
hope
mean?
so, right? I would hope so. But we have Bryan in the building. Bryan, pretty much on every single sports outlet that you can possibly find. He's on FanDuel. He's on 5 Reasons. He's on Basketball News. What else? I mean, like all over the place, right?
Yeah, a couple other things too, but like I don't want to just tire out the people
Okay,
right off
listen,
the
I don't
bat.
I
You know
don't
what
want
I
to blow up
mean?
your
Like,
spot. I don't want to blow up your spot. So we also got my man Toine. We got my man Toine in the building. Toine speaks,
Yes,
doing
sir.
good. And we got Marco Romo, the knower of ball, the man who put me on to Poddle. Still haven't played today's, by the way. But actually, I haven't played like the last 2. But we'll get back to that. So we got a fun episode today. I want to start things
Gad.
off.
Hold on. Gad, the last 2 have been, I just want to say, they've been pretty prominent players in our community. That's all I'll say.
Okay, well there's my hint for the day. I'll take that. I won't use any silhouettes this time. Shout out to everybody in the comments: Dan Mack, Jose Martinez, Major Passons. What's up, Gad? What's up, Major? No Ben Simmons talk today, sadly. But I do want to get to the Miami Heat first and foremost. We are Heat fans. And listen, we've turned it around since More Flora started. I think we're undefeated. Is that right? I
think we
I'm
are.
just saying, listen, the numbers don't lie. So there has been some changes. I know the first episode that we had, we were asking for some changes. I know, Toine, you made some suggestions. Marco, you made some suggestions. Marco, I want to start with you here. What changes have we seen, and how have they affected your confidence level in the team? And also, shout out Fernando Lopez. Sorry, didn't see your comment there. It loaded a little late. But Marco, what changes have we seen, and how have they affected the team?
I've been going with the same 3 things. It's the lineup changes in terms of not even just Drew starting, it's the staggering minutes. And the second thing has been Jimmy not shying away from the jumper. He's actually taking them now with confidence. He was taking them before. It was just a last resort kind of thing. Now it's more of like a second resort thing. He's like, I'm going to drive. Drive's not there. I'll pull up. And if the pull-up's there, I'm going to take it. And the third option is I'll kick it out to Bam, Tyler, or Kyle, or whoever. The fourth thing I want to say is guys are just playing better. Kyle's playing better. Tyler's playing better. I guess Kyle was playing better even during that really bad streak, but everybody else has kind of stepped up. Tyler, we forget he had a kind of a rough stretch, and he was also out during Miami's losing streak, so that was a pretty big part of it. So really it's just about those 3 things to me, and that gives me a lot of confidence because they figured out the rotations, which was a big kind of iffy part for me, considering all the guys that came back, Keith and Victor. They kind of threw everybody off. Now Caleb's back. PJ is finally going to get some rest, whether he likes it or not. Thank God. I hope he does get better. I think he'll probably be fine. It doesn't sound like something too serious according to, everybody who's reporting on it. I really hope that this last game against Atlanta is going to be the last dress rehearsal. Even if the guys win tonight, I can expect the starters tomorrow to play about the first quarter, second quarter, and then probably the rest of the second half if they clinch the first seed tonight. But they'll play the whole game if they don't clinch it. So I really just like the flow right now, and that really gave me a bunch of confidence with how Spo figured out the rotations this late in the season like that. Masterclass.
Yeah, no, it absolutely has been, man. Spo has been on his P's and Q's. He really, really has, because what he's done in terms of like shifting things around, you can give some credit to Black Air Force Chris Quinn, you can give some credit where it's due, but Spo, like that man, when he goes mad scientist, when you give him like 5 hours to just figure out what it is that needs to be done to win basketball games, he absolutely will get it done. So, Brian, I want to shift here with a simple question. So, where were you before, on a scale from 1 to 10, after that 4-game losing streak, on a scale from 1 to 10, confidence level in the Heat, where were you before?
I felt like they had the personalities, the organization, the mental makeup to just overcome that sort of thing. It was a little more, extreme than even people from the outside who really know them or from the inside, like, were expecting or anything like that. But from watching from afar, you kind of knew something was up. But I saw the pathway to them turning it around. They probably did it even a little better than I thought was going to be the case. So I wasn't overly concerned in terms of whether or not they were going to right the ship. Now, how they did it, I think, is significant, though. I think that's a different point. How they did it, how they've made the adjustments, and Eric Spoelstra's not even coaching right now, but how they were able to get into the lab and figure out all these things and get the spacing and put in Strus and get Jimmy easier looks. And Jimmy's shooting threes now, which is something I definitely think we should get into, because I think that is not a game changer in the way it's going to swing whether or not they win the title, but it can open up a lot of different things if people have to just guard him a half step closer because he can make 1 out of every 3 or so 3-point attempts, which is something I'm writing about for Basketball News tomorrow. That's going to come out tomorrow, actually, which is basically the threat of his 3-pointer can open up a lot of other things, especially when he comes in and he's going to be at the 4 in place of PJ Tucker, after that first substitution. And then who's he going to be with? He's probably going to be with 3 shooters and then one of the centers. So he's going to have the space, and other guys are going to have the space. And Bam's going to be able to operate in some space, and they could do some pick and rolls or whatever the case may be. Or you can free up Bam however you want, because Bam, we know, can do a lot of different things. So I think that is probably the most interesting thing for me. It's just the adjustments, but also how Jimmy has been able to sort of adapt and play a little bit differently and looking more comfortable again, because it looked very strenuous before they had their blow up rather. So yeah.
Yeah, no, the jump shooting has definitely been a huge turnaround. And it actually started happening a little bit before the whole blow up situation.
Yeah.
The last 10 games, we'll get into it, but it's been looking much better. And that was one of my biggest question marks for this team. Toine, I know you shared that sentiment, but I just want to say I want to ask, after all of these adjustments that they've made and how they've looked over the last 5 games, I mean, Marco, correct me if I'm wrong, 5 games is the longest winning streak of the season? Or is it tied?
Yeah, they've had that. They've had 5 for 4 different times now, I think. They have never gone to 6.
Okay, so bettors beware. But no, I think the changes and just the way that it's looked and the fact that they won a road back-to-back against the Bulls and the Raptors, undermanned, there's just been a lot of different changes that they've made that have seemed really impactful. And I know there is some skepticism around how the fit of Jimmy and Bam may be, but your level of confidence in the Heat as of right now after this 5-game winning streak from 1 to 10, what is it at?
Ooh, I'm not gonna lie. When we were having that, well, not we, but the Heat were having that ugly stretch where things were going left, it was kind of just a microcosm of everything that we've been concerned about during the season. We've had role players playing above their head, and then everybody was trying to get integrated into, doing things together. And then when we got everybody together, we were relatively healthy. Now we're trying to figure out how we can maximize our star players as well as our bench guys at the same time. And it's just looking weird. And we're struggling in the half court. And when we were going through that lull, it was just all those problems came at the same time. And now we've reached some middle ground. So in terms of my confidence, I'm at a 7.5.
I was about to say the same number. That's crazy. Yeah,
I'm still a little they still got questions. I'm still scared of when the game slows down and they got to build out the half court, how that looks. What do they go to? Do they fall back into bad habits with, looking for the handoffs and things like that? Obviously, we've had more flow. We've had Jimmy jump shots, and that's worked. And we've had Bam jump shots, and that's worked for stretches. But what does it look like when teams are planning for you now? Because your half-court offense was ugly at points where teams were just – when you're playing Charlotte on the second night of a back-to-back, it was looking ugly. So now when you got teams scheming for you and preparing for you, now what does that look like? So that's where the 7.5 comes from. They look better, and I want to give them credit for looking better, but I'm still a little, scared.
Yeah, I'm at a 7.5 after having 2 days to digest the 5-game winning streak, but it could get to a 10 real quick. I have to say that much because the way that they've been playing, man, it has been fun to watch. So one stat that I want to throw out there for you guys. So over the last 10 games, one thing that I've always harped on is the mid-range shooting, because you're not going to expect 3-point shooting from Bam. We may have lost Bryan here. You're not going to expect 3-point shooting from Bam, and you're not going to expect it from Jimmy all the time. There can be some moments where Jimmy can swing a game by hitting 2 or 3 threes, but you don't want to rely on that, right? You don't want too much volume from there. You just want a little bit, make the defense second guess a little bit the way that Bryan alluded to. So for the last 10 games, Jimmy is shooting 48.3% on 3.2 mid-range shots a game. And this is the kicker. Bam is shooting 52.6% on 1.7 mid-range shots a game. So obviously, small sample size, right? This isn't going to be the end-all, be-all. But Marco, yes or no, do you believe in the jump shooting from Jimmy and Bam? They have been at this level before. This is pretty much exactly where they were at in the bubble. Do you think this is something that they can sustain?
Ooh, how long they have to sustain it for, I guess, is probably the question. For a full, run of the playoffs, I'm going to say no. The confidence is low on that. But I think if they only need it for, let's say, 2 rounds, because really during that finals run, they only needed it for about 2 or 3 of those rounds, and they were fine going to the finals. So I think that I'm very confident in, because I've seen those guys can make that shot. Last year they were making that shot. I think Jimmy and Bam last year had their highest mid-range shooting percentage last year. So they've shown that they can. So I'm not so low on it that it can happen, but I'm at a 5 in terms of 1 to 10. But I'm leaning more towards, around the 6-7 range. If, they end, if that first round is like a sweep and the guys are hitting their mid-range jumpers, then my confidence is going to be really, really high, and then continuing to hit it, especially if Kyle continues to hit that 3, because then you got even more space out there. And hopefully, they figure out around the margins, but I think there's something there. The guys have shown that they can shoot that mid-range shot. They just got to be confident in it and also not hesitate, because that kind of throws you off. And then that threw them off last year, especially.
Yeah, no, it definitely did. And last year they had that really good stretch run of hitting mid-range, and then it just fell off in that series, which I choose to believe was an anomaly, because there's no way that I think Jimmy and Bam combined to shoot had to have been 18% from mid-range on that series, on volume too, which was absolutely disgusting. So Brian, not to the exact percentages, not the 48 and the 53 that they're at, but do you think Jimmy and Bam can shoot over whatever stretch they play as long as they play in the playoffs? Can they shoot over 44, 45% from mid-range?
Yeah, I was going to say, I think they can do it well enough to where you need them to do it, right? I think whatever the percentage is, they can hit it well enough. And also with both of them, there's the playmaking element of being able to find other guys who can do it as well, right? So, or other guys on the 3-point line, et cetera, et cetera. Because when they start making their mid-range jumpers, then people are going to just start coming forward. And then Bam and Jimmy are quick enough to get that one step. All you need is a step, blow by, get contact, get fouled, get a layup, drive and kick to somebody in the corner. So it just opens up a lot of other things. So I think they can get what they need out of them in the mid-range. I also think it's important just to create those options, because if they are making them, they're making enough of them if they're a threat and people are playing out to them. Because the big thing last year we saw was Brook Lopez was just parking his ass in the paint, and Bam just didn't want to shoot it. And Bam evidently saw that, and everyone else was like, yo, all right, you need to start shooting this fucking shot. Came into this season, saw early on he was shooting the shot. Now, throughout the year, people have still harped on, he's not shooting it enough, he's shooting it too much, whatever. I think the important thing is people know he can make that shot, and he needs to demonstrate it just enough so that people play him, and then it'll just open things up. So, be able to take the shot, make it just enough, but it'll open up so many things, because this offense is very, very versatile. And so long as they have all those options, I think they'll be fine regardless of how they get there.
Versatility, my favorite word in the sport of basketball. I really, really have to say that word it makes me happy. So Toine, are you in agreement here? They'll hit it enough to the point where they actually make defenses think and they bend the defense with the jump shot a little bit, or are you still a little iffy on that?
I'm a little iffy, just because it's been all over the place this season, and I don't want to get my hopes up. That's mainly what it is. I don't want to get hurt. I'm very cautious when it comes to
I'm
that.
ready. I don't care. I'm ready.
I'm trying to prepare myself for when it falls off, because I think it will, because it's just been a roller coaster all year long with the jump shot. If Bam is on, then Jimmy's jump shot's not on, and then if Jimmy's on, then Bam's trying to figure his way out. And now we've kind of got it at the same time, but it's still a small sample size from when we have gotten it. So it's what does that look like 10 games from now? Is it still the same level of execution? I'm like I said, I'm trepidatious. I'm worried. But
that's fair.
I hope so. I don't want to get my heart broken again.
I'm ready. Listen, my thing is they're doing it at the right time. And I think that's one thing that we want to focus on today. Does it really matter to have that momentum going into the playoffs? I'm not 100% sure, but I think for this team, given what they've been through, to be doing it at the right time, to respond with flying colors in the way that they have, that just tells me a lot. So I'm honestly at this point, I'm ready to get hurt. I don't care. I'm believing. I know I said I was at a 7.5, but like I said, it can turn really quickly. And if I start getting jumpy the way that I am right now, listen, we can get to a 10. Like that's my belief in this team. I've seen a lot of things that I have liked. So I'm enjoying it. But I do want to get to something that I don't like so much before we get to the general NBA talk here. This is just I like to bring in these roster construction questions because I think it's fun dialogue in terms of basketball. So specialists are my focus today, and you can define a specialist as offensive, defensive. Like offensively, you can define it as, say, Duncan Robinson, Joe Harris, Davis Bertans, 3-point specialist, right? That's something that is well known around the league. And then defensively, it's a little bit harder to quantify. Like, is it an Andre Roberson? Is it a Rudy Gobert? That's on the grandest of scales, which is a hilarious contract. But that's what really got me thinking is Rudy Gobert, because that contract, I don't know exactly what the terms are, but I think it was like 5 years, 200-something million. That's a lot of money to be paying a guy that excels at doing one thing in one specific way, because that is his calling card. So, Bryan, I want to start with you here. Do you think specialists, either on the offensive or defensive side of the ball, are worthy of that long-term market value extension? Not just for any team, but for a contender. So it can be on the Duncan Robinson scale, it can be on the Joe Harris scale, or it can be on the Rudy Gobert scale. Like, I know there's a bunch of different variables here, but do you think that getting a specialist, offense or defense, is worth it for a team that has championship aspirations?
So I think it's tough, right? I think there's a pathway to where that player can be your missing piece in some regard, but I am somebody who comes from just a background of understanding I wanted to get into this business, for example, to write, to be on camera, to produce, to edit, et cetera, et cetera. I didn't want to do just one thing because I knew that if you do just one thing, you're going to pigeonhole yourself and then you're going to run into a lot of different roadblocks. So I tell people all the time, versatility is important. It doesn't mean you're going to be great at everything, but it does mean that you'll have more opportunities, be more serviceable, et cetera, and it'll just open things up. Now, that's really to say, I sort of look at these specialists and I'm like, okay, they can do that one thing really well. And in a lot of ways we've seen, if you can do one thing really well, it's also easy to neutralize you. And you've seen that in big moments with Rudy Gobert, with Joe Harris not coming through in the playoffs, Duncan Robinson, he's had his playoff struggles in the past. And that's where it gets really tough. Like, you have to be really excellent at that one thing. And it also depends on how you do it. Because with Joe Harris and Duncan Robinson in particular, it's not just shooting. It's specifically, or more specifically, catching and shooting. With Rudy Gobert, it's defending one way. I was a guy who liked Darrelle Revis more than Richard Sherman. Because I like Darrelle Revis because he can guard any receiver you put on him, follow them anywhere, et cetera, et cetera. To me, that's Bam. Rudy Gobert is Richard Sherman, a zone corner, somebody who
football
would sort of stay there and be like, yeah, and I'm not even a huge football guy like I used to be.
I am.
But like Richard Sherman, who's great at that one thing, zone corner. You put him out there to guard a man who's just a little bit faster and a little more depth, like it wouldn't go well a lot of the times. And that's where you see the difference for me. So I prefer that versatility, knowing that defensively I could throw somebody on you and I have faith to get you a stop. To get me a stop. I don't care about the scheme, none of that shit. It's just I know you can get a stop. And then offensively, I know that I don't have to be so reliant on all these different things in order to get you where you need to be offensively, et cetera. So, yeah.
Okay, no, I love that metaphor because I personally, being someone that Darrelle Revis is one of my favorite corners of all time, Richard Sherman is a really good corner. I like Richard Sherman too, but I see the difference. There is that difference and versatility in all sports, but we'll keep it to basketball here. Versatility is huge. That is one thing that I have learned over the last few years of watching basketball is versatility will get you very, very far. I think the reason why the Heat made that bubble run is versatility, defensive versatility, something that they have now. And now I feel like they have more offensive versatility, which is even crazier to say. It's just the league has gotten that much better. But I do agree with Greg. And Toine, I want to go to you here. Greg said yes, but it must be with the right coaches and surrounding pieces. So if that's the case, if there's that caveat, is it really worth it? And Toine, I'll leave this question to you because this is a very tough one.
I'm of the mindset you don't pay specialists like long-term money. And it's kind of like it's crazy that Brian brought up like the NFL and Darrell Revis and everything. And it's not necessarily football related, but it's the mindset. I'm not paying a guy who does a specific thing long-term big money. I'm not going to do that. If anything, I'm gonna find some guy who can give me similar production. Maybe it may not be exactly what it is, but what he gives, it may not be 7 threes a game from Duncan Robinson. But if I can get a guy who can give me 4 or 5, like great, I'll take that. And I'll replace Duncan Robinson with that guy. Obviously, these dudes are hard to find. It's not, you don't just stumble upon
yeah, absolutely not. Absolutely.
Be amazing. I'm not saying that. But I mean, for example, we're Heat fans. You find Hassan Whiteside, you find Rodney McGruder, you find Tyler Johnson, you find all these dudes off the street who can give you production. I think like you can replace a specialist with a guy like that who can give you enough and can fit into what you do versus having to pay a role player or a specialist who does one specific thing very well, big money for long term. So I'm of the mindset you don't pay those guys. You find another one.
That's fair. That's totally fair. I'm more or less with you here, Marco. I want to get your thoughts on that as well.
Yeah, that's pretty much been my thing since I remember listening to something. I forget who it was, but last year during the playoffs, everybody was talking about Rudy not being, the guy in the playoffs to kind of lead you to the finals and all this stuff. But then they brought up like it's not so black and white. It's also about the guys around him and what you're doing around the margins and all this stuff. But on the other hand, it's also Rudy is a very much a one-way type of guy. But so is Brook Lopez, and he led his team to the finals. But also the Bucks, on the margins, they were elite. They had Giannis and Drew Holiday and PJ Tucker, 3 elite defenders also helping them out. So those guys take a lot of good value, like Brook Lopez's contract. When you can get a guy in that kind of contract, yeah, you're not paying him at all. He's not coming off your books. Like, who cares how much he's making? That's enough for you. But when you're Rudy Gobert making 40 plus, that's scary, man.
Hell no. That is that. I can have the whole Duncan Robinson conversation, but the Rudy Gobert thing, man, like that is a contract. Like there are very few contracts that I want to refer to in the NBA as an albatross. That is the albatross. Like that is the one thing where I know Rudy's going to be super impactful. Like, we know he's really good at what he does in the regular season.
And the thing with the shooters, though, at least those guys are more tradable. Duncan's still very tradable. Like, that contract, absolutely. Easily you can move off of that. But when the Gobert contract is not. That's why the DeAndre Jordan contract, 2 years after he signed it, it looked like it was already an albatross. So, but I think Rudy's way better than DeAndre, by the way. But that's still, you don't want to get tied up into that. You got to fit so many guys around him. The shooters, you don't have to fit guys around them. You can just plug them in anywhere. But they're still, they're very replaceable. And that's kind of been my thing. Miami still probably would have paid Duncan last year because of the options they had. It's just the long-term money was probably my hang-up. But really, it's still movable. But yeah, it's still very not much black and white. But I lean more towards the versatility all the way. Unless you're Tobias Harris, where you have no versatility, and you're still getting paid a bunch of money long term.
Tobias Harris slander on a Thursday night before 10 p.m., man. This is a beautiful, beautiful night, I have to say. But no, I wholeheartedly agree. And it's a fun conversation to have because there are so many factors that go into it. Like, there are a ton of variables. And that versatility is huge. Like, that's the one thing that I've noticed is just if you have versatility, if you're able, my biggest thing with specialists and mainly with Duncan Robinson this season, I guess my biggest issue isn't so much the percentages and whatever it may be. It was just like in moments where this team was just lacking a ton of different options, like there wasn't the ability to step up. That was my only thing. That was honestly my only thing. But yeah, there's no complaints in terms of why they gave him the contract and whether they can move him. That is going to be available if needed. And we can talk, Gilbert Pajares said, what happens if Strus gets a nice contract and does the same thing Duncan has done this year? That's why it's about the specialist archetype. It's not about one singular player, because this is a debate that the way Miami runs things, they've always had one of these guys on the roster. This is just the first time that I think they've really paid one long term. That's really the only difference. But they've always had these guys. They always look for them. This is a very valuable piece of team building for the Heat. Brian, you look like you have something to say here.
No, I was just going to say, and the thing with, like, some people would look at Strus and say he does more, whatever. I would just say that there's an athleticism there, and I'm somebody who thinks athleticism could be overrated in certain instances. But I think when you're comparing him to Duncan Robinson, like, Jimmy Butler could throw him an alley-oop. Duncan Robinson's probably not getting an alley-oop. It's just an option you can have offensively.
Unless it's from Dwayne Wade.
Yeah, and I also think that Max Strus, regardless of what happens and whatever the case may be, I don't think he's going to quite get the Duncan Robinson contract. He may want something like that, but I think the Heat are going to be like, look, we learned, and we're not gonna like do it the same way. Like, he can get an extension. I thought Duncan Robinson would have gotten like maybe 3 years for like $15 million a year or something like that. I could see Strus getting something closer to that, but I don't think he's going to get the Duncan contract necessarily. I'd be surprised if that happens.
Especially within like market corrections.
Right. There has to be a market correction because three times teams have got burned already with Joe Harris, Davis Bertans, and now Duncan. Well, I wouldn't say the Heat are getting burned with Duncan Robinson, but we all know in here that he's not necessarily going to play to $90 million worth, right? Whatever that is. He can play well, but you know, it's tough, man. I think other teams are going to look at shooters and be like, yeah, we're not going to go that far. And
as they should. Like, I think the one contract that has really worked out is Luke Kennard, and that's because the Clippers have done a fantastic job of surrounding him with extremely versatile players where they are not dependent on a Luke Kennard spacing. It is quite literally a luxury. That is the difference. Like, the Heat, for better or for worse, they are very dependent on the spacing that Max Strus, Duncan Robinson, and now Tyler Hero with his improved three-point shooting provide. Like, slice it however you want. That is the fact. They really, really are dependent on that. So I think that's why sometimes these floor spacers, they are better in a spaced out situation, which is a really, really funny situation.
Also, but also the way that guys are playing now, like just playing basketball in general, you can kind of find shooters because they found Max Strus and found Duncan Robinson. Like, and to Toine's point earlier, like the Heat especially, they go out and find these kind of dudes, which is another reason why I was shocked at the money they gave Duncan Robinson, because I was like, you're the Heat. Like, you find these type of guys. You know what I mean? So
all the time.
Michael Mulder is up next. I'm telling you. Michael Mulder is up next. Triple M, we got Michael Mulder minutes probably coming to you tomorrow night. Josh saying y'all saw that Hero is eligible to sign 184 for 5. Is that true? I believe so. I think... Actually, we're having this conversation in like the pool party, whatever. But the thing with those deals is the number always looks bigger than what the cap hit is actually going to be. It was the same thing with Bam, where he was eligible, I think, for like 190 or 193 or whatever. And he actually got 5 for 164, I think it was. Because when you give that player the extension a year early, you kind of have that agreement like, okay, some of your incentives and the escalators in your contract are going to be tied to accolades and awards that we want you to live up to over the duration of this contract. That's something that kind of gets swept under the rug with that. Like 184, I don't think that is what the cap hit is going to be. But hey, at this point, like Hero, he's a blank check for me. I don't know about you guys, but that's a blank check. You see his value to this team every single time that he steps on the floor. Toine, you're nodding your head here. No question?
Pay that man.
It's easy. Okay, so I do want to get to some quick questions here before we get to our 10-minute questions. First one, a player that I just can't stop thinking of what he would look like in a different jersey. Zach LaVine, should he stay in Chicago? Marco, I'll start with you. Let's try to go through this one quickly, but should Zach LaVine stay in Chicago? And if not, where would you want to see him?
I think he will probably stay in Chicago. Whether or not he should, I think no. I think he can move somewhere else and be more of an ancillary piece instead of a focal main point. Even with DeMar there, I think he's kind of like 1B instead of an option B. So I need him to go somewhere where he's a legit option B. I know you have mentioned Memphis, which actually I think I like a lot. He's very, affordable there for Memphis. They can move guys very easily. They have a ton of room in their cap sheet because I think they have a ton of money moving off. Steven Adams, Kyle Anderson, they're all coming off the books very soon. So I think he he's more suited for a B role instead of the 1B-ish role that he is right now. So I really hope that he can, but I think he's probably going to end up staying in Chicago. I think he probably appreciates, the chance that they gave him and how they built him up. But I think he should probably move on if I were him.
Okay, so I agree with you. I think that is a situation that is probably for naught. It's not their fault. It's just the Vucevic thing didn't really pan out. Brian, I'll go to you here. If you have do you have a place in mind for Zach LaVine? If not, I want to give one to you, but I just want to see if we're on the same wavelength.
I don't think he's going anywhere. I think that, they shouldn't not listen to offers over the summer just because they could.
Well, he's a free agent.
Right, but they could execute some sort of a sign and trade situation if somebody really wants him just to get something back. I could see that. I don't think they're going to do that. I think they're going to mostly run it back. Maybe try to do some stuff around the edges and be like, hey, if we were healthy, yada, 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 whatever. Which, there could be something to that with Patrick Williams and Lonzo Ball, Alex Caruso all missing time. But, I'm trying to think of, where he would go, right? And I know Atlanta's going to do something. I don't think it's this.
I don't think that's the answer for Atlanta. I don't. They need defense more so than
because
anything.
It's all right. It's all right. We're going to triple down on a non-defensive backcourt.
They're just gonna be a really high-priced version of Charlotte. That's what it would be.
I'm looking around at just other teams, and it's I don't think they're a Wizards team. Is that the Bradley Beal chip? No. Why would Chicago even do that? It's are we sure Bradley Beal's better? They would be are we sure Bradley Beal's better than Zach LaVine right now?
There's one answer, Brian. There's one answer, and it makes a lot of sense.
Who's that?
Imagine Zach LaVine with the defense that they've developed this year. Imagine him playing with Luka.
I knew you were going there.
It makes a lot of sense to me. A lot of sense.
Is Dinwiddie still there in this scenario?
Chicago loses all leverage if he says, I want to go to this place. So he might end up being a chip that goes back to Chicago or something. But I think that it makes so much sense. And Josue, I agree with your comment. If I was the Bulls, I would trade Vooch first, then LaVine. Absolutely.
I would too. Yeah.
I don't think Vooch is the problem for me. If they get rid of Vooch, they get a defensive-minded center. I think you have a really good chance of being a pretty good team. But they have no defensive anchor, and their best players don't play defense. So that is a big issue for this team. But yeah, no, I think Dallas. It just makes so much sense to me.
I want
Dallas or Memphis.
I want Dallas to get somebody else. Before I saw what Dwight Powell specifically started doing, I wanted them to get a center, a legit center, who can man that. But I think that they'll be okay. They should probably get some sort of wing or whatever the case may be. I actually love some of their role players, Spencer Dinwiddie, Dorian Finney-Smith. As somebody who follows Spencer Dinwiddie and covered him for a while, you can kind of tell he and Bradley Beal didn't really get along necessarily because his numbers would dip when they played together. And people were like, oh, how's he going to be very good in Dallas? And it's look at his numbers without Bradley Beal. He was still putting up 18-7. So I wonder if Zach LaVine, look, Luka could use somebody like that. I just wonder if it needs to be a guard. But I guess it also depends on what happens with Jalen Brunson. Is that the sign and trade? Is it a double sign and trade? Brunson, LaVine, and stuff? Is that it? Because that would actually be kind of interesting.
Brunson, Tim Hardaway Jr., and maybe you throw in a pick. It's not the worst idea in the world. If he wanted to go there, that is the caveat. I don't know what Zach LaVine would want to do. Is
that a Julius Randle trade?
Oh no!
Ooh! Wait till we talk about that.
No. Julius
Randle and stuff for Zach LaVine.
Okay, so we'll bring up Julius Randle action in a little bit. I want to ask one last question here before we get into 10 questions. And Toine, I know you're a huge Grizzlies guy. Yes. I just want to ask this question. It can be a yes or no answer if you want. They've been playing unbelievable, as have the Suns. Both of these teams have undoubtedly been the two best teams in the league this season, in my opinion. Is there any thought in your mind that either one of these teams is peaking too early? They look like they're having too much fun. They haven't really had, they've had adversity in terms of injury and stuff. But, I feel like none of these teams have had a down stretch where they really need to take a look in the mirror. I don't know if they're just so good that they don't need to take a look in the mirror, but a lot of these teams have had those moments this season. Do you think either one of these teams have peaked too early?
Um, I don't. There's nothing that can convince me that Phoenix isn't gonna just remain as ridiculous as they've been all season long. Um, although I think if Memphis get punched in the mouth, like if they play, who knows who they'll play in the first round. If they get like Minnesota in the first round, and like Minnesota like beats them by like 15 game one on their floor, like how do you recover from that? I'm scared about how that team recovers from getting punched in the mouth versus Phoenix, who they've been to the finals already. They kind of understand what they do. There's no defense that's too much for them. There's no lulls in terms of what they do offensively. So I think if Memphis gets punched in the mouth, they'll probably be the one who peaked too early and have some stuff to figure out.
Okay, that's fair. Brian, any thoughts here?
I think it's tough because it's like, if you're the team, it's like, what are you gonna do? Not peak? Like not?
Oh no,
play
for
your
sure.
best
Like
early,
you want
right?
to, you want to. It's just there's peaks and valleys to a season, and it seems like their seasons have literally just been.
Yeah, I think so. I'm not. I know some people say that Memphis is young, et cetera, et cetera.
They're just
for
good.
me, it's not even that. They're good, but I just don't see how anyone is going to beat Phoenix. And I even think that if Golden State, even though I haven't loved what I've seen these last couple of months, if they can get right and get healthy, I'm not going to pick Memphis to beat them necessarily. You know what I mean? I'm not going to do that. But, I mean, I have some injury questions about, like, how's Ja Morant going to be, and is he going to contort himself in a way that scares the shit out of me in round 2 of the playoffs or something like that. I also think Dallas, like we were just talking about Dallas, like I think there's a run there that they could potentially have. Like, I think them, to use as an example here, Memphis was really good really early. They've winning games without Ja Morant. They obviously, like, that's not going to be sustainable in the playoffs because you want to have Ja Morant there. But Dallas is a team that's peaking at the right time. We talked about Miami peaking at the right time earlier. Dallas is a team that it's like, all right, now they've been really playing their best basketball. Is there a run there, right? So, and then with Phoenix, I just don't know if anyone's going to beat them in the West. I think we talked about this before, but I didn't love that workout video post Laker game. I thought that shit was pretty corny. So I kind of
didn't like the winners work. Winners work doing some little medicine ball work after a
in the arena, like barefoot and shit. I kind of wanted them to lose now after that for like a few minutes, and I was like, let me stop. This is stupid. I like Chris Paul, so I'm not going to do this. But yeah, I think Phoenix is going to win the West. I think Memphis is going to have a tough time though because the things that they do are conducive to regular season success. There's a video, and then. Teams are going to play them tough over the course of a series. So I wonder what their adjustments are going to be when teams have much more film on them in a playoff setting.
Yeah, no, I'm interested to see exactly how they work. Marco, are either one of these teams peaking too early for you?
No, I've never been a fan of that term. I think if you peak in the playoffs, nobody's going to remember if you peaked during the regular season.
That's hard.
So really, no, not at all.
Okay, that's fair. Listen, I agree. It's just I see Dallas looming, and part of it just makes me think like this might be the year that Luka puts everyone on notice in the playoffs because he already has, but like actually starts stringing together series wins in the playoffs. And for some reason, I could see them making it if they hit that 3 seed. I could see them making it to the Western Conference Finals, and honestly making it a pretty good series with Phoenix. Like Dallas, for better or for worse, they're ridiculous defensively. It's fun to watch. It's fun to watch. So I want to get to these 10 questions. Brian, I don't know if you've watched the episodes of More Floor previously, but we do 10 questions at the end, things that just come through my mind throughout the day, and I just throw into Marco and Toine, and we see what the answers are. So you get 1 minute to answer a question. I'll throw Marco a question, and then I'll throw you a question. I'll throw Toine a question, and we'll just keep going. So, Marco, I'm going to start with you here. Let me get my timer out real quick. Make sure that we're not going over time. Okay. So, start with you, Marco. Pick one guard long-term. De'Aaron Fox, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, Dejounte Murray.
I like how you made him Latino and Dejounte.
He plays close enough in Mexico. You and I have to put that on there. Come on.
I'll probably go with SGA, which I'm a big SGA fan since his rookie year, so I'm kind of biased there. I've kind of been a fan of him since college. But yeah, I think I'd probably lean SGA. I think he has the most upside both ends of the floor. DeJounte has the most upside on defense. De'Aaron probably has the same kind of upside as SGA offensively. And De'Aaron could be a better defender than he is. I think he's just probably a Sacramento thing. He just needs to get the hell out of there. But I think I'll probably go with SGA.
Okay, that's interesting. For some reason, I kind of lean DeJounte, if you want me to call him that, but I kind of lean him. He's been really good this year. That's part of what made me bring up that question. He's been really good, but I love all three of those players. Really fun to watch. Toine, we'll go to you here. Who has the best chance to average 30 points per game for an entire season at least once in the next 5 seasons? Tyler Hero, Jordan Poole, Anthony Simons.
In the next how many years?
5.
In the next 5 years? Mm-hmm. I'll go Jordan Poole. I think he'll get the best opportunity to do that. I imagine in the next 5 years, like Klay Thompson, like role like comes down a little bit, and Jordan Poole is going to be that next guy in line to kind of like get the reps and be one of the primary focuses of that Golden State offense. He gets the shots up now. He gets them up now. He just has to, get to the 30 points. So I think he has the best shot. My heart says Hero. I'll probably put Hero like number 2. But yeah, Jordan Poole, I'm going with him.
Okay, that's fair. 58 seconds, by the way. Perfect timing. That's interesting. I think I might go Simons just because if Dame leaves, he could take 40 shots a game and no one will bat an eye. That's kind of my argument for that. But it is interesting because I don't think Simons is probably the best scorer of the group. It is an interesting topic, though. Brian, is Miles Bridges worth the 4 years, $130 million offer sheet that he'll likely get on his next deal? Not would you give it to him, because I don't think Charlotte has a choice, but is he worth that money to you?
I mean, he's going to get it, so I guess. I mean, I find myself watching Hornets games, and he winds up with like 20 and 8, and then I'm like, really? He did all that? So it's kind of confusing. I don't know if he's the guy you win with. He has to prove that to me. I want to see that sort of be like the next step. I would say yes, just because of this current climate. Like, if you do what he does, then you get that contract. Would I want to give it to him necessarily? I mean, since I have LaMelo Ball, sure, and then I'll just figure out the rest later.
Okay, that's fair. I like that. So I actually want to ask each one of you this question, but we'll start with Marco. Marco, which team has the bleakest future in the NBA?
Sacramento, always, until they prove otherwise. Pretty much. I'm going to go Sacramento.
Listen, as soon as they made that Sabonis trade, like, we were on Full Court Press probably about like a year ago talking about, the Pacers need to blow it up. I wonder which team would take on Sabonis and really give them something in return. Did not think it would net them Tyrese Halliburton, I have to say. Brian, which team has the bleakest future in the NBA in your opinion?
Part of me wants to be funny and say the Nets, but I'm not going to do that.
Woo!
I'm gonna go with
crazy.
Someone said the Lakers in the comments, and I might have to steal that answer. It's either them or the Washington Wizards. It's one of those two. It's the Lakers or the Wizards. If I had to pick one in each conference, I'm going Lakers or Wizards. That's really it. The Lakers for obvious reasons, and the Wizards, I think Porzingis, Bradley Beal. I mean, good luck. Good luck.
Oh my gosh, that and then. Wizards fans, I feel bad for them. I really do.
The Nets is a fun answer, though. I'm not going to.
The Nets is a very fun answer. It's like if it doesn't happen, but I don't know. I still think the Nets might have a chance to get even better next year.
Depends on Kyrie. We'll see.
This is true. Toine, bleakest future.
I was gonna say the Lakers. They don't have any picks anytime soon, and their players are old. But
you could trade LeBron and AD though, and get that future back.
That's true. But I'll go with Sacramento Kings with a max contract. I'm gonna go with the Portland Trail Blazers. If they trade away Damian Lillard, like GG's, brother, that roster is terrible.
Okay, that's interesting.
They have Brandon Williams in fantasy leagues, and he doesn't even have a picture. Like, it's just Brandon Williams. Like that's and he's their starter right now.
He's their feature player right now. That's the craziest thing. Oh my gosh. That's, Toine, that's a crazy, there's a question on that in a little bit, but that is a very, very interesting thing. Utah's actually one team that I wanted to bring up. I don't think they're there because like they don't have to trade Mitchell, so they'll be really good. But if it gets to the point where Mitchell requests a trade and pulls like a Jimmy Butler, James Harden, Ben Simmons sort of thing. Yeah, that's getting really ugly really quickly. Like really, really quickly. So it is interesting. Part of me wants to say OKC, because I know they have all these picks and whatnot, but they just don't do anything to actually try to win games.
75,000 picks, and for some reason, you can't name anybody on the roster other than Shai Gilgeous-Alexander.
Yo, it's real though. Like even when you play 2K and you just make all these trades and just stockpile draft picks and shit, after a while you're like, I can't keep all these dudes. Like I got to start getting rid of picks. Like Oklahoma City's gonna be at that point where it's like, yo, all right, you can't trade Shai because you're just gonna get picks.
It is. Like part of me wants to think like they're just gonna pull some crazy like 9-team trade where they get rid of all their picks and assemble the Western Conference All-Stars. And honestly, not a bad way to do business because you can only have so many picks. Tony said Sam Presti owns the right to my cat. I think probably, honestly, he probably owns me if I'm being completely honest. Okay, let's keep it going here. Toine, which of these teams will be the best next season? Magic, Rockets, or Thunder?
Rockets, they have the most juice. I like Alperen Şengün. That boy can pass.
Yes.
And then obviously you got KPJ and Jalen Green, and talent makes up for a lot of the warts that a team can have. So I'll go with the Rockets. I like them.
Okay, that's fair. I like that. Okay. So kind of where we were earlier, but Bryan, if you were the Blazers GM and you got the number 1 overall pick, would you try to trade away Dame?
See, this is a little tougher because, like, I think because Dame's been praised for his leadership. Having a young dude around him, who's whoever it is, not going to be a bad thing. And it depends on what Dame wants. If Dame really doesn't want to like win a championship at like right now, and he's kind of cool with being a mentor to a team that's quote unquote DK on the rise, then all right, cool. Then he can stay. But you know, I would go to Dame and be like, look, what do you want? Because I also don't know what his trade value is right now, right? Like who's the team? Is it the Knicks still? And if that's the case,
yes.
If you're Portland, it's like, all right, you want RJ Barrett, they're not going to give you RJ Barrett. And you don't want Julius Randle, I don't think.
I think so. if they call up New York right now and they say, give me RJ Barrett and some picks for Damian Lillard, I think they are pulling the trigger.
I think the Knicks want to pair RJ Barrett and Dame. I think they would rather do that.
That's interesting.
Because like they like RJ Barrett, and as I've been screaming from the mountaintop since RJ Barrett was drafted, play around him, not around everybody else. And for 2.5, almost 3 entire seasons up until like a month ago, they finally started letting RJ like actually do things offensively and not just stand in the corner and be a spot up shooter. And he's actually a good player, despite with like a lot of people, remember the Cam Reddish is better than RJ Barrett shit that was coming out of Duke. It's so stupid. Now they're on the same team and Cam Reddish barely plays. So
Tibbs is a war criminal, I'll say that much. But no, I do agree. I think RJ's a good player. I just wonder, like, if the opportunity presented itself to get a legit superstar in New York, do you punt on that in order to get that player there?
They might risk it all. I'm not gonna lie to you.
I wouldn't blame them. Like it's not the smartest way to build a team, but I would not blame them because it is New York. You get Dame there, maybe some other players want to play with them. Anything can shake loose. Okay, Marco. On that next point, where does Julius Randle make sense?
And that's a hard question. He don't make sense in New York, that's for sure. Last year was an outlier. I think maybe weirdly enough. I was going to say Sacramento, but nobody makes sense there either.
Him and Sabonis, I would stop watching the sport of basketball.
Well, that rock would not survive like 2 minutes. I don't know. That's a tough question. Maybe like a low ceiling team that, kind of flies under the radar. Nobody really cares about. They kind of have wings all over the place. Maybe the Pacers in a few years, that kind of team that he can just ball out and win 41 games a year and nobody really cares. That's probably what he wants. I don't think he wants to live in Indiana, but a team like that, that's probably where he makes the most sense.
I know Scott in the pool party chat always likes to say he's a Kentucky guy. He always likes to say Julius Randle really wants to go to Houston. I don't know if he's from there, like what the deal is.
I think he's from Texas.
That would be somewhat interesting. I know some people have said Dallas. I do not want to see that.
Can I say
maybe
the
Orlando?
Wizards?
Orlando. The Wizards would be fun, actually. Porzingis,
like
Beal. That team would make so much noise to finish as the 11th seed. It would be unreal. I would love to see that. So, Toine, let's go here. How do the Raptors take the next step to being championship contenders? Because they're a really good team now. But what's the next step for them? Is it a trade? Is it just let it develop?
I think you need Gary Trent is really, really good. If you can get like Gary Trent with some juice, whatever that looks like, that's probably the answer. I don't want to, they're not necessarily getting this guy, but like if you get somebody of that Zach LaVine, Bradley Beal elk, somebody that can get you, that can be that guy for you offensively, that guard who can get you some buckets and maybe not get destroyed defensively, that helps you a lot because you got a bunch of 6'7", 6'8" dudes who can do a bunch of stuff. So I think like something like that, like just a guard who can get some buckets.
Okay, I like that. I like that. Bradley Beal, Zach LaVine, that would be an interesting fit. I would have liked CJ McCollum for them, but I don't think that's like. I think they need one tier above that. So these next two questions, or actually we'll do one more question for Brian. Brian, give me a player comp that is currently in the NBA for Jalen Green.
Kind of Zach LaVine-ish.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
I see some of that.
That's what I wanted to hear.
I've heard Bradley Beal, and he's a Zach LaVine type of athlete. He's too much of a Zach LaVine type of athlete to be a Bradley Beal. I don't know if he's gonna ever become a like great shooter. I don't know if he needs to be necessarily. I do think his shooting is going to get better though, as we've seen it develop over the course of the year. You look up at one point earlier in the series shooting like 38%. Now he's in the low 40s, which for a rookie, yeah, that's good. You'll take that. But Zach LaVine-ish, like that's what I see. And look, that's good for somebody you draft that high. I didn't think Zach LaVine was going to become Zach LaVine at one point. He averaged like 8 points at UCLA, and I saw him dunking on people and he got drafted like in the top 10. And I'm like, who the fuck is this guy? And then after a while, and he wasn't even that good early on. It took a while, and look, he became a late developmental success. And I think to this date, he still hasn't even played a playoff game yet, which shows you like how young he is and how unfortunate the situations he's been has been.
Yeah, no, I agree. I love the Zach LaVine comp. That is what I thought he was going to be coming in. Granted, I was really high on Jalen Green. He was my favorite player from the last draft class. We won't talk about that. I love Jalen Green coming in. He's finally like putting things together. So I'm excited to see what they look like. And I agree with Toine earlier saying that the Rockets have the brightest future next season, at least in terms of the Magic, Rockets, and Thunder. Marco, who has the brighter future? The New York Knicks or the San Antonio Spurs?
Spurs. They have DeJounte Murray, actual flexible cap guy, young guys developmental program.
3 first picks,
stable
first round picks.
Yeah, stable front office. Should I go on? I don't know. It's kind of hard to make the argument for somebody for not the Knicks. I can make an argument for whoever hell you bring me right now. I'm not going to say the Knicks.
Oh my gosh, I can't fault you for it. Brian, any rebuttals there? Or do you think it's the Spurs too?
I think it's the Spurs. I don't think the Knicks have a bleak future, though, but it depends on what happens with the Julius Randle situation, right? Like if you can get him to buy in again or if you're just going to trade him and whatever. Because they actually have some decent young, like Jericho Sims is okay. Mitchell Robinson, you can figure that situation out. I actually think they should do a double sign and trade and get Jalen Brunson for Mitchell Robinson. And then you could take care of 2 problems for each team. Mitchell Robinson wants a bigger role somewhere. All right, have fun in Dallas. Like I think that could actually work.
You think the Mavs would do that?
I think, look, I don't think they should trade Jalen Brunson, but it sounds like they want to. And Dinwiddie seems to be some Jalen Brunson insurance. So it's like, I think in theory, you would want to do something that lands you a center because while Dwight Powell's been strong defensively, is Dwight Powell going to be your long-term and only answer? And part of the thing with Luka is like, he hasn't had like a really good center at any point, and Mitchell Robinson's not like a really good center, but he has some of the tools. Like he's a lob threat. He could block shots. Like he has some of those things that you would want if you're Jason Kidd to sort of mold into what you want him to be.
He can be a bigger Clint Capella. I like
but
that.
I still think the Spurs because DeJounte Murray. I'm going to steal that from
yes,
you, Gad.
Thank you.
We're always trying to claim people. You know what I'm saying? DeJounte Murray. The Fiesta jerseys are the best city jerseys in the NBA. I don't care what anybody says. Like those Spurs jerseys are awesome. They're the cleanest shits. Every time I play against them in 2K, I put those on. And they still have pop and the organizational stability. So I think they have the things in place, but I don't think the Knicks are too far behind.
Okay, that's fair. Toine, Knicks, Spurs, real quick before we wrap up here.
You'll get no Knicks love from me, sir. Spurs all day.
Listen, that's the way that it should be. All right, so conclusion of another episode here. I know we got a hard out at 10, so I want to make sure we get out of here. Shout out everybody in the comments. Some good points today, especially on that roster construction thing with the specialist. Really, really like some of the feedback we got on that. Shout out Bryan for joining us tonight. Catch him on the Bahama Rican Boys on the network. It is with him and Timothy Bain. Really fun show. Still waiting for my second invite, but it is a fun time. They talk basketball just like us. They talk Heat basketball, but also some other things, some culture stuff involved as well. Catch Toine on all the post-ups. Catch Marco wherever he is dangerously looming. I quite literally do not know. Marco moves differently. But you can catch Marco, the knower of ball, pretty much anywhere on the 5 Reasons Sports Network. Shout out everybody in the comments. Any last words before we head out?
No, the Heat are the 1 seed officially. It's official.
The Bucks and Raptors won?
Yep. It's official.
Oh, the Bucks won. I saw that they were losing before.
Smash that money line. Smash that Hawks money line right now.
Okay. And Bahama Rican Boys will be live on Monday night because we're going to be talking about like some season stuff. And also Timmy can't record late Sunday, so we're doing it Monday night live. So bring your comments and bullshit. We'll, anything from basketball to fucking narcos.
Mexico or Colombia?
Both. I love both. I
just couldn't get into the Mexico one. That's a conversation for another day.
The Mexico one is great. You got to get into narcos.
No, God, please, no.
You got to do it. You got to do it. Do it for Isabella. Trust me, dog.
Do it for me. Even though I've never seen the show.
At the night show. Come on. Toine, last words.
I don't know.
Because I'm a stud.
I appreciate the honesty. Sometimes Toine he's very concise, man of says what's on his mind. Listen, Toine, all you gotta let him know, how is the price of the brick doing?
Hey man, the price of the brick is going crazy right now. Y'all
all time high, if I could say so myself.
We going into the playoffs. We the 1 seed. We done locked it up tonight. The price of the brick is going crazy right now.
Mm-hmm. I checked my Robinhood account. The brick can't even buy it right now. It's crazy. It's unreal. All right. So with all that being said, the Heat are the 1 seed. We had a good time. That's it. Play the video, Manny.